Hey, Pastor Josh here. We're reading Acts chapter 24, verses 10 through 15. And do not give people something to say. Don't do something silly. Don't do something wrong that would give people something to say bad about you. Don't give them something to talk about. The Apostle Paul doesn't do this. In fact, he is accused and he's able to say, not done it. So it's a good example for us to follow. Paul will go on to say that he has lived with a clean conscience. We should try to do that. Remember, we're not living in front of people. We're ultimately living before God. And if we're able to live our life every single day with a clear conscience, then we are going to be good to go. And if we're quick to admit when we're wrong, confess, then I think that's a recipe for a good, godly life. May we all commit ourselves to living that way. So don't give people something to say about. So now it's Apostle Paul's turn to talk. Tertullius and the high priest, the Jews, have said terrible lies about the Apostle Paul. And now here, let us run into Paul's response. Verse 10, when the governor had nodded to him to speak, Paul replied. So, okay, Felix. Felix says, Paul, you can speak. We'll find out a little bit later that Felix is actually aware of the way. He's aware of these Jesus followers, this sect of the Nazarenes, as they call. So Felix is aware of it. This is not the first time he has come in contact with the way. So Apostle Paul says, knowing that for many years you have been a judge over this nation, I cheerfully make my defense. Now notice the difference between what the Apostle Paul does and what Tertullius has done. Tertullius has buttered up Felix, and Paul just says, I know you've been judge over this nation for 12 years, for many years. And so since you are aware of everything that's gone off, then I have no problem talking to you because you kind of know what's going on. Verse 11, he said, Felix, you can verify that it is not more than 12 days since I went to worship in Jerusalem. Yes, you can verify. You can ask your people. I've not. It's been 12 days since I went to worship in Jerusalem. And they did not find me disputing. Yes, Felix, if you want to take the time and effort, you can verify that I was not disputing with anybody. And yes, we saw from the record of Luke, he was not disputing. He was actually there to offer a vow. Again, Paul did not give them something to say. He didn't give them to talk about. He was actually there worshiping the Lord. So you didn't find me disputing with anyone or stirring up a crowd. Nope. I was there to worship God, either in the temple or in the synagogues or in the city. No, nowhere. He did not give them anything to talk about. Verse 13, neither can they prove to you what they now bring up against me. That is, all over the world, I'm stirring up people. No, I just go and talk to people about Jesus. I talk to them about the way, as it is starting to be called here in the book of Acts. And so here's what he says. Yes, I've not stirred them up, but I do confess there is one problem I got. I talk about Jesus and the resurrection. Verse 14, but this I confess to you. Yes, he's telling them the truth. Here's what I actually do. I don't stir everybody up, but I do preach a message. I do have something to say. That according to the way, which they call a sect, I understand, they think it's a sect, but it is the way. Remember, Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So, but according to the way, which they call a sect, I worship the God of our fathers. I worship God that the Jews worship, and I worship the true God. And I do it through the way. And I believe everything laid down by the law and written in the prophets. If you remember, even Jesus himself said he did not come to tear down the law, but he came to fulfill the law. And so Paul's saying, I believe everything laid down by the law. I believe everything written in the prophets. And we as Christians believe that too. We do not just cut off the Old Testament and just say it has no bearing on our lives. There's a way to think through the Old Testament. And as we go through the book of Exodus and the book of Leviticus, this coming winter, we will see and we will be faced with various law codes and prescriptions that we don't do today. And there's a reason why Christians teach that, and it's ultimately because Jesus has fulfilled it. We'll go into more detail as we're walking through those particular laws. But Paul says, I believe the law. I believe Leviticus. I believe Exodus. I believe the prophets, Jeremiah, Isaiah. I believe them all. And I have a hope in God, which these men themselves accept. They believe I do hope in God, that there will be a resurrection of both the just and the unjust. And here's what he's saying. Here's what I'm in trouble for, Felix. It's that I believe in the way and that I believe there will be a resurrection. And actually, these guys will even say that we have a hope in the Lord. Now, again, he's going back a little bit, distinguishing probably most of these folks that have come to defend or to accuse Paul, probably Sadducees and not necessarily believers in a resurrection, but he's saying these guys have hope in God as well. And I believe that there will be a resurrection at the end. But we see that the Apostle Paul did not give them anything to talk about. Even though they were accusing him, he did not give them anything legitimately to bring against him. And that's a good example for us to follow. And we're going to see in the next readings, we're going to see the Apostle Paul continue to defend himself before Governor Felix. I pray that's been a blessing to you. I'll see you all in the next video.